Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. How are you all doing today? I think I got something figured out here. I realized last night I made a couple of videos for American Reversion, and the glare off of my laptop, because I was reading stuff off the laptop, and I'm going to read a few things here today too, was making it look like I had big reflective eyes. So being the technical genius that I am, I said, I wonder if I just kind of dimmed the light a little bit, if that might help. It seems to be. We'll see. I'll do the best I can. Okay, hey, are you ready for the disasters that are coming? Oh, it's fear porn. Well, disasters are coming. Are you ready for them? That's my question. We've got several stories here I want to talk about. You know, the world will show us the importance of preparing if our eyes are open. The vast majority of people go through life cluelessly, just thinking that life is one emergency after another, which it can be if you're not prepared for it, and wondering, when will this ever end? It can't get any worse than this, right? And then things get worse, and they go, oh my gosh, it can't get any worse than this. And they're just like little ping pong balls going back and forth, or maybe more than that, a pinball going, you know, bouncing from one emergency to another and never really thinking about doing anything about it. And even those who do, only a few of them actually do something about it. And that's what I want to talk about here today. You've heard about, before I get to there, let me tick off all the little commitards who get all upset, get their panties in a wad, because I sell my books. The books that I wrote, the books that I put years into writing, the books that are all about, you know what? Preparedness. Preparedness. This is a preparedness channel. I guess those two kind of go together, right? And most of you are laughing out there. I do get you. I mean, half the time, when I get a person that comes on and complains about that, usually I just bounce them because they're such idiots. Maybe I should start leaving some of their comments up there for you all to read. But you'd be amazed at the comments that I get about getting on me about wanting to sell my books. Anyway, I won't go into that. You know how silly that is. But these are brought to you by the Stonemont Series. It's a great series. Don't take it from me. Take it from my mom. No, I'm kidding. She loved it. She has passed, but she loved it. People around the world love these books. It is all about preparing for surviving and then rebuilding after a major calamity, a major collapse of the world. And it's not just about how to dig a Dakota fire hole, you know, or how to build a lean-to, or what to put in your, we call them jick bags, or your bug-out bag, or how to fish with a stick and a piece of twine. It's about actually preparing for and surviving a major catastrophe with as little interruption in normal life as you can. And you know what? It can be done. People are doing it all the time. Well, but Steve, we haven't had a major collapse. Well, but I know that as a result of the preparations of many people, as talked about in these books, when the big one hits, they're going to say, just like on the back of one of these, what does it say? Jim Wyatt had always said that if everything fell apart, he didn't want to just survive. That's right. He didn't want to notice. That's what these are about. And it's about community. It's about the basic foundational principles of our families and our faith and how our country was supposed to be. So that's who brings you these videos. And if you'd like to know how to get a hold of them, I always put the links down below. You can get them through Amazon. The link is there, Kindle or paperback, or you can get signed autographed copies from me. And the way to do that there is down there too. So, are you ready for the disasters that are coming? Well, a lot of people have not been, because disasters have been coming for a while, and we can learn great lessons. Those people who aren't prepared and haven't been through a major disaster can learn great lessons from those who have been through them, and both from those who were prepared and those who are not. Talk about a couple of national stories, and then I want to go more worldwide, because we've heard about Oh, we've heard about, the floods and the droughts, and these are worldwide. These aren't just here. And these are the things that are impacting our food chain. These are the things that are going to cause food shortages, and in some places, probably starvation and famine. And these are the things that affect so much of not just our future, but our daily life now, as we contend with, rampant inflation, as we contend with the fuel crisis, as we contend with many different things. And so it really is a global problem that we feel locally. Does that make sense? Well, we had a wall of storms up in where is this? Michigan, Indiana, and Pennsylvania. Some of you live up there and have already told me about this a little bit. But just to kind of start off with what's going on in our own country, it says at least 3 dead, 1 million without power as storms winds slam Michigan, Indiana, and Pennsylvania. A wall of storms that roared through a swath of the Midwest and South with heavy rains, hail, and wind gusts up to 80 miles an hour. Have you ever been in a wind at 80 miles an hour? It is something. At least 3 people killed, knocked out power in more than 1 million homes and businesses. How many of those homes and businesses do you think had generators? How many of them had generators that actually kick on automatically? How many people had the ability to purify water? How many people had everything that they needed to continue to live fairly well in their home if their home wasn't underwater and damaged? Probably not a lot. Probably not a lot. Now, when we think about it, it says here, just to make this personal, in Ohio, Toledo Fire and Rescue said a woman was killed when a tree fell on her. Okay. In Arkansas, an 11-year-old boy was swept into a storm drain and died. 47-year-old woman tried to help him. She was rescued and hospitalized, but the little boy died, swept into a storm drain. More than 500,000 power customers are in the dark in Indiana at the height of the storm Monday night. That number has been reduced as they get out there, of course. Michigan, over 640,000 homes and businesses remained without power at sunrise Tuesday. That's this morning. Okay, so they've got people out there working on these things, and they'll get them fixed. But what do you go through while you're waiting for them to get fixed? If we go down south to Jackson, Mississippi, Jackson has lost running water for an unknown amount of time, says the Mississippi governor. People in Mississippi's capital are poised to lose running water for an undetermined amount of time, the state's governor said Monday night, that was last night. A major pump at Jackson's main water treatment facility was damaged, and the city has been using backup pumps. Until it's fixed, there will be no reliable running water in Jackson, which will impact up to 180,000 people. The city won't be able to produce enough water for serious needs, including firefighting and flushing toilets. One of those will be important to some, and the other will be important to all. The schools are going to virtual learning. We will continue to closely monitor the water conditions on a day-by-day basis at our schools while conferring with city officials to determine when scholars and staff, that's the new name they give students. If a district calls their students scholars, it usually means that it's a economically depressed district, and they want to make everybody feel better by calling the kids scholars instead of just trying to teach them things. No timeline was given on when the main pump will be fixed, but officials will distribute drinkable and non-drinkable water to residents. What a fiasco that is going to be. How many of those people down there do you think were prepared? How many people have the ability to filter and purify water? Well, the preppers do. It's a perfect time for you to look to your neighbor who's not prepped and go, see, hey, come on over. I'll purify a couple of jugs of water for you. Maybe get them involved in the task, right? Okay, here we have something from Uncanceled News. Now, Uncanceled News is an interesting outlet, isn't it? People have different thoughts about it. But I think that this here is something worth sharing. The title is someone trying to tell us something? We're being hit by unprecedented drought and unprecedented flooding at the same time. Now, this talks a little bit, we think we know about what's happening in our country. Half our country seems to be flooded and the other half seems to be in drought. Now, this has happened before in history. Some people say that God is at work here. I will in no way dispute that. God is at work in so many things that people just don't realize. And we as a country have not been good folks, so I won't minimize that at all. Do I think that? I don't know. I don't know the mind of God. It could be him. It could be the weather. Whatever it is, it's a situation with which people have to contend, and that's the important thing when we're talking preparedness. They start the article. Who wrote this article? Let's see. This is by Michael Snyder. And Michael says, we have never seen anything like this before. Probably not, since Noah. There are some parts of the globe that are being absolutely devastated by endless drought. How many cattle have we seen having to be sold off because farmers can't afford to feed them, right? How many acres have been plowed under because it doesn't make any sense? They can't water it, and they're not going to get their return on investment, return on seeds. We seen it. We just on our trip out west, we saw whole swaths of country that hadn't seen a drop in way too long. There are other parts of the globe that have been absolutely devastated by relentless flooding. Okay, so if you happen to live someplace where weather patterns are still behaving normally, you should consider yourself to be incredibly blessed. In all my years, I have never seen extreme conditions in so many areas of the world simultaneously, or if you're British, simultaneously. I agree. I have not. And I won't say that I have been a hard and fast student of the weather all my life, but I don't recall anything like this, and I've been fairly aware for 40 years. This is a major red flag, but unfortunately the vast majority of the general population is still not paying attention. That's true. We have to deal not just with the world, but with the ignorance in it. Over the past few months, I have written article after article about the droughts that we are currently witnessing all over the planet. Right now, Europe is experiencing the worst drought that it has gone through in at least 500 years. And the rivers are getting so low that hunger stones are now being revealed for the first time in centuries. Now, this is what I found interesting here, because I had never heard of hunger stones. Maybe some of you all have. I bet that some people here have. You all are smart. I'm somebody out there that probably has a master's in hunger stones, so come on and tell us all about them. Here's what I can tell you about this. On this front, too, Europe's rivers are turning up bleak omens. The receding waters in parts of Central Europe have revealed old hunger stones, markers placed along riverbeds that locals centuries prior left as guides to earlier droughts. One stone that emerged out of the Elbe read, "When this goes under, life will become more colorful again." So these droughts have happened before. Okay, this is not unprecedented. It is just long precedented, right? It hadn't happened in a long time. But whether it's unprecedented or not, or just haven't happened for a long time, that doesn't minimize the effect that it has on people. It doesn't ease the impact. So here in the United States, the western half of the nation is suffering through the worst multi-year mega drought that the region has experienced in 1,200 years. 1,200 years. And this is causing all sorts of very serious problems. Yes, it is. Nearly 3/4 of California is in extreme or exceptional drought, considered worse than severe, according to the U.S. Drought Monitor. It's so bad that scientists say the ongoing drought in the western United States marks the region's driest 22-year stretch in more than 1,200 years. The conditions have affected a broad swath of regions and industries. California wells are going dry. Farmers are either paying a premium for water or letting their fields sit empty. And there is growing concern that water exports from the Colorado River could come to a halt. China is in the grips of its worst drought on record, which has dried up parts of the Yangtze River and impacted swaths of the country's industrial sector. What else we got here? Much of central and northern Pakistan has had 200 to 600% of normal rainfall, with over 1,000% of normal rainfall in southern Pakistan. Karachi, Pakistan had 1,397% of normal rainfall in July. For the season, rainfall has been 1,001% normal in Karachi. Pakistan's foreign minister said the calamitous floods gripping the country are a catastrophe on a scale I have never seen, as the death toll soared above 1,000. Okay, well, you know, I have a whole list here. I'll put this up over on Patreon for anybody who would like to read the entire article. But the point, of course, is that while we talk about some major catastrophes somewhere in the future, catastrophes are happening all the time. I forget whether I said it on this channel or the other channel, but catastrophes can be global, they can be continental, they can be regional, or they can be personal. And just like politics, where they say all politics is local, well, all preparedness is also local, meaning individual. All preparedness is personal. Whoever these people are, whether they were in a position of drought, whether they were in a position of extreme flooding. Now, flooding, you can't do a lot about. I mean, you know, if you are where you are and it floods, there's a problem. But, you know, there are ways to mitigate that too. If you live in a floodplain, what would you have ready? Okay, would you have a place to go that was above the floodplain, above the 1,000-year floodplain? If you don't, you're not really thinking ahead. You're not preparing. You're just playing. Do you have a way to get from where you are to that place? If not, you haven't really thought it out, and you need to. Do you have a way to get all of your stuff from where it is to where it needs to be? Now, if you have a place that's above the floodplain, hopefully you've stocked it with stuff. But, you know, if you've stocked an empty cabin with stuff, those cabins get broken into all the time, and people show up at their cabins to find, people were living here for a while and they're gone, so's all my food. So you know, if you were in a flood situation, those poor people that were down there, you need to see it, you know, coming in time. I've said this before. The difference between surviving something and not so often, or surviving it well and just surviving it not well, is recognizing the problem in time and then acting on it. I know if I wanted to talk tact to speak, I'd say OODA loop. But it's just a matter of being cognizant of what's going on. Realize, have the experience or at least the judgment to know when a problem is coming. And then do something about it, and do something about it in time, you know, so that you are not victimized by it. If you're in an area where there's drought, do you have stored water? You know, if you live in an area to where drought happens occasionally, is your entire lifestyle wrapped up in that? Is a drought going to wipe you out? If it will, or if it would, you need to have a plan B and C and D and E. What happens if you're hit by drought? Now, people are being wiped out in the West because of drought. Their farms and their ranches are going under. It also affects people in the Midwest. And now here, to be honest, we have no problem. We're not having flooding. We're not having drought. I've had to water my garden more often than usual, but the water's there. Okay. But how is it affecting us? Well, it's affecting us because the price of food is going way up, way up. I mean, there are things, they like to talk about this phony inflation figure, which isn't even close. There are food items in the store that I see that have gone up over 100%. That does affect people. So how do you mitigate that? Well, that's where your stored food comes in, right? So do you have stored food? And it always comes down to the basics. It always comes down to the basics. The difference between a pro and an amateur so often is just that the pro does the basics so well all the time. Knows the basics, does the basics. So often the amateurs are out trying to find fancy stuff to do. I told a story about black belt. Well, maybe I'll save that. I will save that for Patreon. It's a lesson that I gave to my martial arts students. So it's affecting everybody. But the basics are what mitigate these problems. What are the basics? Everybody knows, right? Air, shelter, water, food, defense, right? You have to be in a situation to where you can breathe. For most of that, that's pretty much taken care of. We don't have a volcano going off over us, so we're not breathing dust. Our shelter, most of us are pretty set with that, unless we live where the fires are raging and burn us out. But, if that's a possibility in your area, you need to have a plan to deal with that. Water, that's your next priority. You need to have stored water. Store as much as you can. In here, I talk about how they store water and how they use it. And then how they get more. The lessons in these books, like I say, I'll hold them up once again for the guy who gets all upset that I sell my books. I don't. It's not one particular guy. I don't know. It's some guy, but they're just occasionally somebody that comes on and grouses about it, probably because they don't have their own books or something. I don't know. But there's never been a question that I've been asked that I haven't already answered in detail in these books. And if you're truly interested in preparedness, you need to read them. Water. You need it. If you're depending on somebody else for all of your life-sustaining needs, you're simply a victim waiting to happen. So you need to store water, and you need to be able to filter and purify water. Food. You need to be able to produce your own food, but until you can produce all of your needs, you need to have stored food. One of my very first videos was about that. Go back, I think it was called The Next Step, and I talk all about how to build a preparedness pantry. And it wasn't for a month, it's for years. What do you recommend, Steve? How long should I have food for? A month, 2 months, 6 months? Nope. 7 years. 7 years. Well, I don't know about that. Okay, then don't know about it. Do it your way. Okay. 7 years, I just take it because 7 years seemed like a good number because that's what God told Joseph, as he interpreted the Pharaoh's dreams. And then the ability to defend yourself. All of these things. All of those people now suffering in the flooding and the drought have all of these things to be concerned with. Okay? Too much water, too little water. And when you've got too much water, you don't have enough drinking water because the too much water, flooding water, takes out all your drinking water. Food, is it there? Or do you need to go down to the soup kitchen of the FEMA camp? Defense or shelter? Have you taken care of your shelter needs, or do you have someplace else to go if your primary gets taken out? Defense, can you defend yourself, or do you leave it up to the man to defend you? These are the basic things that preparedness-minded people deal with. And if you're just starting on the road toward preparedness, these are the things that you need to think about. These are the areas that you need to dedicate yourself to tightening up on, to developing, until you get to the point to where, like it says on the back of this book, Jim Wyatt had always said that if everything fell apart, he didn't want to just survive. He didn't want to notice. How much would you notice if you had one of these big problems right now? I guarantee you that in every one of these places, there is someone or some people who doesn't and don't notice. Those are the people who dedicated themselves to preparedness. Preparedness is ultimate responsibility, and the ultimate responsibility is on you. Okay? So, I'm sure I kind of slid this in. I have a list of a whole lot of things that I need to talk about. I slid this in because of what's going on in the world today. But remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And if we want to live well tomorrow, it's the preparing well today that does it, because you will live tomorrow as an exact reflection of whatever preparedness you have done before that tomorrow gets there. So think about it. You all have a good day. Do something every day. Think about what you're short on. Think about what you're weak on. Tighten it up. Strengthen that weakness that you find in your preps. And to be ready for the next catastrophe, because it's coming. You don't know what it's going to be, but you do know that it's coming. Okay? You all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.